This is the George and Dragon Inn in Meaford, and this pub has undergone significant changes throughout the years, but it's always been the centre of the community. There's been an inn on this site for nearly 200 years, and that's just as far back as we can find the records. Chances are it's probably been here a lot longer. In the late 19th century, the George and Dragon Inn underwent significant changes led by the Lady Mary Ann Forrester. Lady Forrester was also known as Mary Ann Jarvis, and she was the third daughter of Edward Jarvis, Viscount St Vincent of Meaford Hall. She took a great interest in the local area, and in 1880 she completely renovated this pub. She removed a lot of the buildings, demolished them, and rebuilt it in a completely new and modern style. She also did this with the rest of the village, and she built a new school. The area that is now the car park of this pub used to be farm buildings, and you can still see some of the remnants. But before Lady Forrester's renovations, this site hosted an inn, and it also served as the home farm for Meaford Hall, as is shown in the 1861 census. So for at least 150 years that we know of, it's been an inn, and a coaching inn, and also a farm. Lady Forrester's work on the George and Dragon was careful and deliberate. She wanted to blend Meaford's architectural history with the convenience needed by modern patrons. And in doing this, the inn didn't just become a more impressive structure, but it also continued to serve in the village. I can't find any physical record of the inn other than paperwork from before she renovated it. But this window, which is on one of the old outbuildings, which would have been part of the farm, is fascinating. There's very clearly a date of some variety, some kind of writing there. And the stone is just so out of place. But I can't find anything at all, any record on what that would be for. So if anybody watching has any idea what that could have been, or where that stone could have been used from, I would very much appreciate for you to comment or contact me. I would assume it would be a stone from the buildings that were here previously, because they love to recycle and reuse, stones and wood that were in previous buildings. That could have possibly been a lintel over a door or window from a very old farm building. Because like I say, the car park here used to be the farm buildings. This inn has been managed by a series of landlords over the years, each playing a key role in the pub's development. In the 1860s, it was John Walter Brockley, and in the 1880s, Thomas Shardlow and his family took over. But the most well-known family were probably the Straws. This was known as the Straw for a long time. But did you know that hidden above the porch is the old signage for Edward Straw being the licensee of the pub? This was Edward Straw Sr. in the 1880s. Through the years, the pub has diversified to try and keep up with public demand, so it had always been a pub and an inn, and it was a coaching inn with the stables and the farm. And the farm had pigs. It was actually a pig farm as well. If you look on the census for throughout the years, it was actually an inn and a farm, and the people who ran it were classed as farmers and innkeepers. But as the years passed, we went from coaching inns and horses to cars, and so did the pub. The outbuildings outside were converted to garages, and it became a vehicle repair centre. Like I said earlier, in the 1950s, Ted and Sybil Straw managed the establishment, and it became known as Straws, and these were related to Edward Straw Sr. in the 1880s, whose name is still above the door outside. And we are very lucky to still have that writing outside, because the porch is a later addition, and it very, very nearly covered it up. It's interesting to note as well that Sybil Straw, throughout the war, was a member of the Air Raid Precaution Service, so she would have been responsible for protecting civilians during air raids and providing first aid and evacuation. The pub still retains a lot of its features from when it was rebuilt in the 1880s. But the biggest loss to this pub was in 1987 when the farm buildings were demolished outside, and it was just before the establishment of the conservation area that would have provided some level of protection for it. And although it did give them a bigger car park, I think the buildings lost a lot of its history in the fact that it was a farm. I think, yes, we've kept the history of the pub, but we've lost the history of the farm. But the pub expanded, it got bigger, the upstairs was turned into a restaurant, as you can see here. The downstairs was already a restaurant, and there was a much bigger car park. And they tried hard to retain a lot of the original features, so it's still a beautiful pub inside. And the pub expanded again in 1997 when a conservatory was added to it, and this allowed even more people to come and eat and drink in there because there was much more room. This pub has been at the centre of community life for at least 200 years. It would have been even more important to the community than Meaford Hall, which yes would have employed a lot of people, but this was where everybody met. And the pub wasn't just a place for socialising, it would have also been a place for local inquests. So if there was a suspicious or unknown death, the coroner would have come down, they would have held an inquest here. And there was also things like auctions held here for land, for horses, for cattle. This pub really was the centre of the community. And it still is today. It's just off the A34, so it's got fantastic transport links. And we're so lucky to still be able to go and visit these historical places and support them with our patronage. You know, have a drink, have something to eat. And whilst you're doing that, you can sit and think of all the history that's happened in this building. Meaford Hall is in private ownership, but the village is still there. You can go and have a walk around. It's a beautiful example of a village that was created to look beautiful. This is the old schoolhouse, and it is still a nursery. And then there's also houses along the road that are built in the same style. There's a lodge. And Meaford Hall is still standing, although it is a lot smaller than it used to be. And it is in private ownership, although I would absolutely love to do a video on the history of Meaford Hall, because it's a very interesting place. But thank you for watching. If you'd like more information, I have written an article on my blog, which is The Red-Haired Stokey. But if you love local history, don't forget to check out some of my other videos, and thank you very much for watching.